Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Extra Mile. I'm Justin, and that's G5 over there. Hey, George.
Hey, man.
What's up?
Not much. We have a guest, and our guest is Sam Brown.
The Sam Brown.
Yes.
Welcome, Sam.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
For having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Breaking in the new chair, new studio.
Amen.
So I'm glad to have you on. And you've come into Milwaukee. You've just done super good things, and you have. I hear you have a great story. So we want to get you on, and we want to talk to you.
Okay.
That's about it.
Well, that's good. Thanks for having me. Ask away.
Well, let's start the beginning.
Okay. Well, don't ask about that.
Okay.
Beginning of my life or Genesis.
Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Crosbyton, Texas.
Okay.
And my dad moved around a lot. So we lived in Lorenzo, played football over at Roosevelt at ACUF, lived in Lubbock a few times. But I'm from around here. My people really are from about 125 miles east of here in a town called Benjamin.
Yeah. I know
Little
Benjamin.
6-man football,
Don't know.
300 people. It's just bordered by ranch work. That's all it is, ranches. So that's where I'm from, but I've lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I've lived in California, and also lived around Huntsville, Texas for a long time.
Oh, wow.
So you know what that is. You either work in a prison there or you're in prison.
I had an acquaintance who was having a heart surgery, and the anesthesiologist comes in, and before they give him the shot to put him to sleep to go to surgery, he says, "Is that the stuff that you give the people down in Huntsville?"
Oh, yeah, really?
He said, "No, it's a little different."
Well,
He
it's a
says,
little bit different.
Sorry.
Wow.
We can
Well,
edit
that's
that
about
out.
the same.
A little dark.
About the same thing.
He was a
about
preacher, so anyway.
Yeah, really. About the same guy that comes in about to go under, and he asked that doctor, he said, "Hey, doctor, you're not a member of the Church of Christ, are you?" He goes, "No, why?" He said, "Well, I heard they didn't believe in instruments." So, anyway.
Oh, man.
Wow. The jab.
See?
Get it all the time.
That's all right.
It's interesting, the stigma, isn't it? We were kind of talking about that before, where even just recently I was dealing with that in my own home, like with a friend, just sort of somebody cutting stabs at you for your beliefs. And it's not comfortable to ever experience that. But I find that fascinating where, we're sitting here just trying to do good and trying to do something that's wonderful for our life and for others, trying to share love. And then it seems that not necessarily appreciated all the time.
No, it's people's got biased opinions. And what it is, I think mostly, if what I've experienced in my life is that most people, they believe what their parents believe.
Mm-hmm.
They believe what their friends believe, And so I've had many people tell me, my dad was a Baptist and he died a Baptist and I'm going to die a Baptist or a Methodist or whatever, And so, yeah, it's really the concept of, are you going to be open-minded about eternity or are you just going to be closed up? Because when you close your eyes one time, you're not going to open them back up. And when you do, you're going to be staring to the face of Jesus, And so.
Did you grow up Church of Christ?
Mm-hmm.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, I sure did. Of course, I was the only one that went to prison for singing too loud in church.
Oh.
So that was a little joke there. But I grew up in the church. My mother was very staunch. Church of Christ, and I hate to say it like that because we really don't need to say I'm a Church of Christ, but a member of Christ Church, because it doesn't matter if it says Church of Christ on the outside of the building. I've been in some before that was not following the Bible,
Right.
And so we're stigmatized. It's never very comfortable when people argue with you about what you believe, And it's like when I go into the prisons here, I greet everybody that's there that I know that's there, and I can recognize people as the Islam faith. They got the little tufis on, and most of them have the tattooed with the
Teardrop?
yeah, and that stuff. And I always greet people, like Okay, so in the penitentiary, when you go in there to preach the gospel and you're a member of the church, you can't do it like, okay, that audience versus the audience at Milwaukee is like, 1,000% different because these people here know the scriptures, most of them. The ones in prison, they get so many different denominations that you could sell them anything, what we call selling somebody a hog. But when you preach down there, it's best if you preach what I call a relatable, illustrative gospel, something that they could relate to in there. And if you've never been in prison, you probably wouldn't be able to do it. Even if you've been in prison ministry, like the guy I go in there with, his name is Glenn Bills, and he's from Trinity Fellowship Church here in Lubbock, but they got like 10 campuses. Their main one is in Amarillo, and I went down there with him last Friday and met the regional chaplain, Bill Day, and they wanted to meet me, because he'd been telling them, I've been going in with them since May.
Yeah.
And so, but when you have that audience there in the penitentiary, it's so much different because they want to hear some of your story. They want to be interested. And most people go to church, either one reason is to get out of the cell, just to get off the cell block, and to break the boredom. Another one is just to get down there and hang around with friends. Another one is if they hear that somebody's been down there and has been incarcerated a long time, like I have, then they want to hear, they want to see. They want to see and they want to hear some stories. And they want to hear your story because I think it gives them a sense of maybe hope that they can get out and do the same thing.
Makes sense.
And so what I always tell them is that don't come to hear me. I mean, come to hear the message. But I know that when I used to be in the penitentiary, I would go in, I would see people in there that I was sort of interested in what their story was. And so it's more of an illustrative type, relatable gospel. But the main thing is preaching the good news. So I filter that in, my stuff, with the good stuff, the good news.
Yeah.
So I get them interested in it. And it's sort of like the old adage about, if a preacher makes you laugh and then he makes you cry, and, then he preached the gospel a little bit. And then when you pass the collection plate around, it's like, I'm not laughing anymore. I'm sort of crying. I'll have to give a little money. But that kind of stuff like that. So it's a great opportunity for the gospel to be spread inside. I'm just so glad that God providentially moved things around so I could be able to do that. Yeah. So I go in, the bottom line is I go in with Glenn, and I always tell him I don't go to the Trinity Fellowship Church over there. I'm a member of the Milwaukee Avenue Church of Christ. And so when I come and I preach, then it's going to be the way we do it there. In other words, I separate myself from that, although I go in there with him, But God's sort of funny about stuff like that. He used Glenn to bring me into the penitentiary. The funny story about that is, I might have told you about it.
You might have.
About how I wanted to go into the county jail when I first got out, And that was my whole desire, to go into the county jail. Well, me having a monitor on all that time that wasn't going to happen. They would not let you in. But God moved me around to where I met Glenn at Cracker Barrel. Accidentally just met him. I'd never seen him before. But he had a tag on his shirt when he came in. There was this other guy named Dan Dean, and he had one too, and it said CVCA, a little emblem of Texas in the red, white, and blue. And that CVCA stands for Certified Volunteer Chaplain Assistant. Okay. And so how many people in the world would know what that meant? So I walked up to him. I said, so you're a Certified Volunteer Chaplain Assistant, huh? He said, man, how'd you know that? So we started talking. We ate together and decided from that point right there that he'd like to take me in. So I went through the process of filling out the volunteer application. Of course, me being incarcerated before, it took a little special, circumstance to do that. But fortunately, when I was down there, I got in the chaplaincy programs stuff and doing the faith-based programs, and went into a thing called a life coach program, which you go off the unit to another unit. You get trained to be a life coach, which you come back and teach cognitive life skills to the other inmates. And so, according to their curriculum, it didn't have anything about God in it, but it had godly principles.
Great. Yeah,
so it
that's
was really
good.
It was really good. So that the guys that was over that, they would come and they would hear us and they would sit in our classes and stuff. The main guys, Christopher Carter, Chad Wakefield, that's over the volunteer services program and the rehabilitation division. There's the big guys up in TDC. So they get to know all of us real good. And you just can't just become a life coach. They got to choose you. You got to have like 10 years experience in doing ministry on that unit. You know, somebody's got to know you, like the chaplains, the wardens, the majors, the captains, and stuff like that, before I can put you up to go over there. They're just not going to stick anybody in there. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool to be able to do that. And so that's what I was going to try to go into Lubbock County Detention Center to do that.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out that way. Now I'm still not doing it. So not only did God open a door for me, like you remember in Colossians in chapter 4, where Paul says, pray for us that God will open up a door to us to spread the gospel.
Yeah.
You know, which I always thought was pretty cool, because here's an apostle asking prayers for God to open up doors. You know,
That's a good point.
Miracles.
Yeah.
This dude could do miracles, you know, which shows the humility of Paul.
Yeah. He's looking for an opportunity.
Looking for an opportunity still. So I went in with that. We started May 29th. On that first day, we baptized at the Montford unit out here at Lubbock. We baptized 26 people.
Wow.
And then 2 months later, we baptized 73 people.
Wow.
And then went down to the Smith unit, and we done 44 people. And so Glenn came up to me, and he goes, hey, Sam, you know, I just got to tell you, man, I hate to admit it because I know you got a big head. And he's always telling me that. So really, he really thought it was very fascinating and sort of strange that since I came on board with them, that their numbers have increased.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody wants to come here, this guy that's been in the penitentiary, you know. And so my message to them is just hope. But anyway, not only that I did not go into the detention center, I went to the Montford unit, and then now I go down to the Smith unit. So we do 2 services there on Mondays. We have to leave Lubbock before 6, and we get out of there about 3:30 and get back about 5. So that's an all-day thing. And then Wednesdays we go to the Montford unit and we do 2 services. And then me and James Cook and Brother Keith Ward, we go down to the Kingdom Towers on Thursday nights and teach an hour class there. And that's called Let the Bible Speak. Ministry, yeah.
That's
so,
Sam Brown.
Yeah,
Sam Brown Church.
Yeah. So,
Church of Sam Brown.
There comes that Church of Christ guy. Get the water ready. Yeah, the water dog.
That's what they call
awesome.
you, water dog.
Yeah.
Do you go back to these people that you've baptized? You try to talk to them, or any follow up?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I want to tell you why it's a good question, because it comes from you. That's why it's good. No, not really. But the question is, okay, do we do follow-up? Well, that's my whole objective, and my vision is, and I got it in the penitentiary, you know, it's like I was telling this other guy today. Well, I met him at the rehab a while ago, and I was telling him about the prison ministry, and he was interested in it. And like I was telling Caleb a while ago, everybody's interested in prison ministry, you know, from afar. But once they try to get in and go in the actual prison, it freaks a lot of people out.
Yeah.
You know, very uncomfortable. And it really was, I wasn't freaked out no more than I was the first time I went in. You know, I you know, going in the front door instead of the back door on a bus is totally different. And then I was always like, well, they're going to find out something's going to happen, and I'm not going to let me out of here, you know. So that, I was very apprehensive that day. But a lot of people aren't interested in that, in the prison ministry until, you know, you actually go into prison and see what it takes just to get in there. They think you just walk right in the front door. But anyway, the question about the follow-up thing is that my vision is whatever unit I'm at, whoever I go in there with, whether it's going to be me later on by myself, I want to do a follow-up class, like for people that get baptized. Well, I want them to know why they are baptized. What does it say in Scripture about baptism? So really, it's just to get them to study. It's to get them to study. It's
Get 'em
not
in
just
the Word.
about baptism. There's other things in there that people don't know about because they haven't studied. So, yeah, it's a good thing about being in prison. If you have the opportunity, like I did, you'll have a lot of time on your hands, and you can either go the bad way in a penitentiary, or you can go the good way. It's just like the wide road or the narrow path, So, a lot of opportunities there to study and learn the Bible.
Really?
Yeah.
You have access to the Bible in there? I mean, that's probably
yeah.
a dumb question, but just like making sure.
Yeah, you have access to the Bible, just like a people has access to the Quran. Anything you want in there, if you want to be a devil worshiper, believe it or not, TDCs, that's good with us. TDCJ, they're very ecumenical, they call it. So if you want to be an Orthodox Jew or a Messianic Jew or they got one thing called Luciferianism. It's this
devil worship. Interesting, man.
Pagans, neo-pagans, all that stuff.
Yeah,
they
that's
got to let you
ecumenical
do
to a
that.
whole nother
Native
level.
American.
Yeah.
They got some units they'll send the Native Americans to that's actually got sweat lodges on the unit.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very, very weird.
Well, what is if you were to give your sermon right now, what would be your story? Would you be comfortable sharing that?
Yeah. Well, my story started back, when I was 17, everything's going good with my mom and them, and then I joined the Marine Corps. Then when I joined the Marine Corps, I was exposed to people from all walks of life.
And how old would you be here?
17.
17.
Yeah.
Wow. Marines at 17.
Yeah, and I was living in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the time, and everybody on that side of the Mississippi goes to Parris Island, South Carolina for basic training. There's only two.
Okay.
There's only two training camps for Marines, and the other was in San Diego if you're on this side. So I went there, went in with a guy, and this started going crazy. I just started, I put God on the back burner.
Was it just the influences, you think?
Yeah, just the influences, man. Just young and stupid. And I think everybody's been through that, the young and dumb stuff. So then after that, just started getting in trouble with people and the law. I didn't really get in trouble with the law a lot. I had a couple of instances where I would, but and then later on, when I was 26, I actually got busted with about 1,300 pounds of marijuana, and actually was involved in helping grow it and stuff like that. So we got busted, and that was in '85. And so, but believe it or not, I don't know if it was a providential hand of God that did it or what, but I know that we got 10 years probation for that. And because some of the marijuana come up missing, they were going to, bring in front of the jury or whatever. When I tried to get it at the storage facility there, and 700 pounds or something like that was missing. Yeah, so they decided to give us a scandal-free county type probation. I mean, probation, 10 years probation.
Really?
So they got us for 10 years probation for engaging in organized criminal activity, and that was usually a 15-year automatic sentence. We got probation on it.
And this was like a farm?
Oh, well, yeah, it was. It was a farm. It was a farm.
It was a farm, a marijuana
and
farm.
thank goodness they did not find where we were doing it at, because that guy's 5,000 acres would have been confiscated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, a lot of things happen. I look back and I said, man, wow, how did that happen? Now, God didn't put me in the penitentiary. I heard a lot of people say that. God put me in prison. I said, no, he didn't. You put yourself there.
Oh, interesting. So
now that you're there, though, recognize that if you would have been walking with God, you would not walked into the prison. So, because, I got a saying, like, when you walk with God, you're going to get where he's going. I mean, you don't walk beside God into the prison, Yeah, now I do. But, I hear a lot of people say that, and then, but it's because of your own stupid mistake and sin. That's what gets you in the penitentiary. So, like I said, but I'm the only one that got,
Are they sometimes like
got
blaming?
accused of singing too loud in church. Singing too loud. They said, you got to put this guy in prison.
Justin's next. Just
I know.
kidding.
I think my wife and my kid would kick me out. Just too loud.
Too loud.
It's fine.
But are these people blaming God for being in prison?
A
They
lot of
are.
people, a lot of people angry. They go in there, God don't love me, or when I'm
Really?
in here, my people died, and I couldn't go to the funeral, and why would God do that? Just like they blame God for a lot of other stuff. Why would He let those kids starve to death and all that kind of stuff?
But they're not willing to blame themselves.
Yeah, because they don't understand. They're not trying to understand it. Even though kids might die or you might go to the penitentiary, in the book of Romans, it says all things work together for the good that those that love God, of who's called,
Mm-hmm. And He
You
can
got to
change.
love God first.
Yeah. He can redeem any situation
Yeah.
for good. Yeah.
So that, I went in there, and then when I was 30, I got another charge, which was this charge here. I got a life sentence on, and actually didn't ever think I was going to get out. So I did 34 years and 8 months in the penitentiary. And but when I was down there about 29 years ago, 30 years ago now, since I've been out for almost 2 years, I had a friend of mine down there killed. He got killed by a gang. And so I knew right then that, man, I was never going to get out of here. The way things were back then in prison, it was a lot different than it is now. It's sort of like compared to that back then, it's sort of like a kiddie farm. They've got so many federal and state laws that protect people now. Back then there wasn't a lot of that going on.
Really?
No. So, but anyway, I sort of started walking there, and a lot of trial and error in my faith. A lot of things that I thought I knew I didn't know, and I told some people some things about the Bible that I believed was true then that turned out to be not true, and so and it makes you feel bad that you can't get the opportunity to go back and tell them.
Yeah.
Some of them are not here no more. So yeah, but started doing that, and then I started getting involved with the. Thank God, I know. As a matter of fact, I know God did put a lot of wardens on that unit that were sort of faith-based minded. They were faithful. Two of them was a member of the church, Tracy Bailey and Daniel Dickerson. Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
and but they was really into this faith-based program, and George Bush started that, modeled after a guy in a warden in the Angola prison system. He started some faith-based stuff years and years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and Texas modeled that. They actually went there and found out what they were doing because their whole prison population changed.
Mm-hmm.
Because they introduced God into it. Whatever you believe God is, or who God is, then whatever. If you believe in something that's good, I'm not going to judge you because you're not a member of the church. If you, it's sort of like Paul. I know a lot of people, man, that's really zealous for God, but it's not a cardinal knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I'm not. If somebody says they love God, and I see them doing good, and I see them raising their families, they got a job, and they're I'm for that guy.
That's great.
I am for that guy 100%.
Just back up a little bit. After you got busted for the marijuana, the probation, and then the life sentence, what led up to that? Like, what was the time period there?
About 3 years.
About 3 years.
And my dad had told me, he said, if you keep hanging around them same people that you're hanging around, he said, I'm going to send you a postcard in TDC. It's not going to be long. And I still got that postcard. He did send it to me.
It's a reminder.
Sure did. Oh, yeah, he reminded me one of the I told you so things.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk to my dad probably for, 10, 12 years after that. My mom would write me and everything. My mom would drive all the way out from Georgia to Texas by herself to come out there and see me. You talk about hard visits. Those are hard visits, man. Man. But she actually told me, how your mom knows that you're lying? Your mom's one of the only people on earth that can tell when you're lying. Yeah. Your wife you might get by with it with your wife or your friends, but your mother, nah, that's not going to work. But she came down and told me, man, several times how proud of me she was that I was following God in the penitentiary, and that was really a heartbreaker. And so And when my brothers and them found out about it, they were like, sort of jealous, that she wasn't telling them that out there because her life wasn't going too good at the time.
How many brothers you have?
I got 2. One of them died. I had 3. One of them
sorry.
died. Mark died.
So you're the
about
oldest
5
or the
years ago.
youngest?
No, I have Travis, then Mark, and he passed away, and then me, and then my younger sister, Christy, and then I got a younger brother, Matt.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So it's a big family.
Yeah,
Are you all
5
close?
kids.
So you're the middle kid.
Yeah, I was the middle kid.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Why-
mom's favorite,
Why
not really.
Why did you join the Marines?
Well, I don't know. I think one reason was I was probably going to go to jail if I didn't.
So the influence was
something
already
had
there.
happened, and the judge, we actually took our Marine recruiter down there, a sergeant, and he said, "Yeah, these guys are going to go in the penitentiary. Going to go to the Marine Corps." So they said, "Okay, well, you better be on that bus when it's time to judge."
Oh wow!
So that's how that happened. Yeah.
Oh wow!
But yeah, it was. It's all been a pretty interesting ride, interesting journey. To where I am back then, and where I was 2 years ago, February 21st. I've been out 2 years. So, and I've been going to this congregation ever since. I think I got out on the 21st, seen my parole officer on the 22nd, and I think on the 24th or 25th I was here. So, and they didn't have to let you go to church when you got out. And so I told him that first day when he was taking all my information down, all my stipulations, all my restrictions, that, I told him I wanted to go into the prison system, to the Lubbock County Detention. And then he started sitting there writing stuff down. His name was Vicente Perez. And I remember I told him, I said, well, I guess, because he's not really saying anything. So I told him, I said, well, I guess everybody that comes out tells you this kind of stuff, right? He looked up at me and goes, no, actually they don't.
Wow.
So, and I tell the guys in prison, man, I said, you know what? I don't know if this is true or not, but I figured it could be. That if 1 out of 10 guys that got out of prison went back in to preach the gospel, it wouldn't be too long. There probably wouldn't be too many prisons left.
Mm-hmm.
Just 1 out of 10. Just think about that for a minute. 3,000 people's released from TDC every day. If 300 would go back, make the effort and try to get back in and preach the gospel, just think how big of an impact that would be just in the state of Texas. Just think about that. Because them guys, I've seen them tear up, just seeing me and talking to me, and everybody wants to tell me their story. When I get through, they want to all meet and talk to me, and there's not enough time for it, So that's why I need a class in the prison and also I got the opportunity to preach the 3rd Sunday of every month in La Mesa.
Oh, great.
I told you about that. So
you
I
did.
go down and do the Lord's Supper and everything. I go in by myself then. So that's strictly a church thing there.
A lot of the things that you were talking about, about some realizations that you had. I mean, I know we could probably continue. I have so many questions and there's not enough time.
Yep.
But some of the things that I even reflect in my own life, having conversations about the Bible, believing what you know, and then, after some study, you find out that wasn't necessarily so what you thought, and that you wish you could go back and rekindle, reconnect, talk, maybe some regret there. And I have a couple of those.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just that's why having access to the scripture is one of the things that we really talk about, where it's one thing to carry the Bible with you into church every Sunday. And for a couple of decades, I never really cracked it outside of the building. I mean, I would every now and then, but wasn't a devoted, I want to search this book for everything it's got to offer me. And that's at least one of the things that we try to talk about on the podcast is how do we inspire people who might be really in need of some type of direction. I mean, it makes sense in prison that, well, you can just be bored, or you can go work out, or I don't know, maybe there's TV, and then, or you can read.
Or there's gangs.
So
Or there's homosexuality.
all the influence everywhere.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So, you know, it's about a mindset thing.
Yeah.
You got a lot of, you know, what's the old saying? Idle hands is the devil's workshop.
Yeah.
So, tracking the Bible or carrying those, what we call, you come in here with your 9-pound Bibles, you know, and nobody ever, you get brand new $70, $80, $100 Bibles sent to people. And I got a guy down there, he's a member of the church. He's got a ministry in Huntsville called Huntsville Inmate Ministries, HIM. So he's got to deal with a bus station. They take all the Bibles up that people leave there and collect them. He comes, picks them up. He's got 2 closets plumb full of every translation you want. So when somebody asks for a Bible, he says, well, what kind you want?
Yeah.
And he'll give them a brand new Bible. Some of them's got other people's names and you know, embossed in gold on it. You know, because people just leave it there. But when you start seeing the Word of God alive, you know, and a couple of guys down there that was very influential to me that was walking, they had been locked up for years when I got there. I always found it fascinating that they were still flourishing.
really?
Yeah, in the penitentiary. And I'm not saying that they were members of the church, but they still believed what they believed was good and true. And they believed they were serving God, you know. So who was I to say that God's not accepting that, even though we know that scriptures, you have to go by what the New Testament says. You know, so
Did you feel hopeless when you got your life sentence?
absolutely. Yeah. Sure did.
Yeah. And
It took a lot of incidences, you know, and things happening back then, and me being stupid and allowing myself to get involved in things down there that probably wasn't very healthy for people, you know. So I never did join a gang. Promised Mama I wouldn't, so I never did, you know. But you know, if you're white and you're as big like I was when I was, you know, 30 years old when I went in there, everybody wanted you on their team, you know.
Protect them and stuff like that? To protect them and things like that, or what?
No, they wanted you on their team to increase the number of their gang.
Oh, gotcha. Ignorant.
You know, so, and they all have these constitutions that they write, and they want you to read their constitution. What do you think about that? So you have to initiate to go into a gang, probably fighting 2 or 3 guys, you know, to get in there. It shows that you have heart, they say. And don't care if you can fight, they want to see that you will.
Now, is it
So
hard to
stand up for yourself? It says you have heart when you do
Oh,
that.
interesting.
Yeah. But if you don't join when they offer it to you, you just got to fight to stay out.
Yeah, I was going to
So-
ask if it's hard to stay out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, a few things like that happened without me going into any details that, you know, I had to stand my ground. So you had to fight. You know, you got to fight. Sometimes you got to stand, like it says, you know, keep standing. You know, well, I mean, if I would have got knocked down, if I was to have not fought, there's no telling where my journey would have ended up. You know, it's not good not to fight in there when you have to.
Mm.
You know, don't. I'm not saying. I mean, you know, was I afraid? Absolutely, a lot of times. But sometimes courage comes from fear.
Yeah.
You got to just go crazy sometimes, you know. Or I did back then. Now, I mean, I don't know. It's totally different.
What was your main motivation for going back in the prison?
A desire to. I seen the need while I was in there, not only for myself, but for. I seen when the volunteers from other ministries would come in. Some of them guys was really attracted to them, and it was like an allurement to them. It was like a beacon of hope. You know, if they didn't, because when you're in there, you're routined out. You're talking to everybody you're talking to is wearing a white uniform. You know,
Yeah.
or either that or wearing gray, and so you get bored with them, and you can't talk to the guards too much. You know, it's not a good thing to be seen talking to a guard all the time. You know, so, but when they would come in, I think my biggest motivation was I wanted to do what they were doing because I seen how satisfied and joyful they looked coming in doing that. You know, why? I mean, I kept thinking, why is these guys coming in here, bringing their wives in there and all kinds of stuff? There's all kinds of ministries. Why are they doing that? They don't have anything to do out there, you know? So I sort of scrutinized a lot of them, still do. What's their motivation, you know? So, but I seen the need for it. And I seen that someday, most people, 90% of the people is going to get out of prison one of these days. And so if I can be a part of helping change the mindset, even a small speck in this universe, if I could be a part of that to change the mindset, because these people are going to get out and they might move across the street from you and your wife and your kids, or be in the same neighborhood of your mom or whatever. And so I got to thinking, man, them guys, you know, they need somebody to come in there and tell them that, look, the way that got you in here, you do not have to keep going that way. There's a different way. And one thing that you see in the penitentiary is phoniness. You can see the real people, I mean, around you in there, you know. Some guys have this big macho man type thing, you know, and you know that they're really not, you know. But people can discern, you know. You don't even have to have a spiritual discernment. You can discern if people's real or not. And so when some of those guys would come in, man, I was sort of attracted to them too, because they offered me an escape that day, because I'm listening to them. They're from the free world, and they're really giving me some hope. And I said, well, these guys got to love God. I mean, why are they doing this? So, and I've seen some of them guys that come in, start classes, man, everybody join their class, and a lot of people fall off, then a lot more come on, sort of fluctuates, you know. But most of those guys that's in those classes are searching for something, you know. And if you don't give them what they're looking for, they're going to find it somewhere else, you know. Like these guys that we teach down here at the transition house. Well, they don't call them halfway houses anymore. They're transition houses, you know, transitioning from the prison system to the, you know, outside free world. So them guys down there, they're still searching for things. So God opened the door for me to teach down there. And so he's saying, I want you to spread the gospel in there to these guys. And even though, you know, Steve Taylor and them, the manager of the Kingdom Towers, is what it's called, on 16th and Q, they don't want you to teach doctrine, you know. Still got that thumb on you. You know, everybody don't want you to teach. In other words, they don't want you to preach the truth because they don't believe it's the truth.
Yeah.
They believe, you know, the sinner's prayer is going to get you into heaven. And they don't want you to teach baptism. They don't want you to teach once saved, always saved. And I mean, they want you to teach that.
So
They're Calvinists, you know. They don't want,
Yeah.
they don't want, you know.
yeah, sure. But if you're talking to someone who is eventually going to get out, like you were saying, and I'm guessing you're telling me they need Jesus. Like, if they're going to go out in the real world, they need Jesus, change their mindset. What is the gospel? What do you think? Give me the gospel.
Give me the gospel now.
Yeah.
Well, the gospel is the good news of Christ, that, you know, if you're going down the road that you're going now, you're going to go to hell. If you go down the road that Jesus is wanting you to follow, you're going to go to heaven. And there's you know, like in Peter, in the second book of Peter, you know, he's talking about it's according to the true knowledge. You know, so there's knowledge out there of the Bible, and then there's true knowledge of the Bible, and like rightly dividing the truth. So I take the good news in there to them, and I show them, look, I'm just a guy like you are. And everybody, some people have you ever had people say, man, you're a good man?
Yeah.
And you want to correct them. And the best way that I just got a text from someone the other day that said, man, Sam, you're a good man. And I texted them back and I said, well, thank you. I said, but no, really, I'm not a good man. I'm just a man trying to do good things.
Mm.
And the only way we can actually put forth the effort to try is to try to practice more and more and excel still more in our faith every day. And we fail miserably. Every day we fail miserably, man. We might not think it is, but, you know, have you drove in Lubbock traffic lately and tried to keep your composure? Oh, Jesus loves you. Thank you for pulling out in front of me.
I read a study the other day. It said Lubbock drivers are the best in the nation, or some of the best in the nation, but I can't believe it. I
According
think that's
to
fake
what? Hong
news.
Kong?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
So what was that moment? You just gave me the gospel. What was what was that moment for you when you heard the gospel for the first time, and how did that change your life?
You mean in prison? Because
Yeah.
we hear it all through our life.
Right.
And I'm one of the guys that I cannot tell you the day I was saved.
Really?
No. I
Why?
can't tell. Well, because it wasn't a all of a sudden thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, like some people say, oh, Jesus came into my life and we had a bowl of cornflakes together. He was sitting right across the table. Well, I just had a guy tell me, the guy going there, the prison with, he just told me that his girlfriend, he's 75. He's got a 57-year-old girlfriend. But anyway.
Cradle robber.
I digress. but no, but you know, they seem to be pretty good for it. But he told me that she had an encounter.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't say nothing. You know, you can't
You can't do. Yeah, you can't really say anything.
I mean, who am
I've
I
heard
to-
those too.
And when people tell me stuff like that, you know, that they've seen Jesus or, you know, I always just think, well, I mean, in the Bible, when they just seen Jesus, they fell down on their face.
Mm.
So you're just sitting there talking to Jesus? I mean,
Well,
and here's John trying to describe what he looked like, and there's all this, you know, stuff in Revelation about what God might look like, you know.
yeah.
He can't even describe it before we can understand it, you know, but
Well, I
this guy
listened
had a
to
bowl of cornflakes with Jesus.
Oh,
Really?
bowl of cornflakes. It reminds me of the sermon I listened to yesterday, and he was, you know, given this example of it, like this idea of relationship. We throw this term around all the time. This idea of relationship. I have a relationship with God. I have a personal relationship with God. And he made the point, like, well, I have a personal relationship with my phone, and I have a personal relationship with Amazon, and I personally buy things for myself, and it's a personal relationship. But it's nothing like it should be with God, right? That's a transactional relationship, and as you were saying, I imagine you can't nail time the day and time when you were saved, but it's this process here. God offers us a covenant relationship, which is so much deeper, and it's a covenant that grows and relies on Him, and we're going to live for Him, and it's a life thing. It's more than just a personal transactional relationship. It's a covenant relationship. Kind of what came to my mind when you were talking.
Well, I remember when I was baptized. I was baptized when I was 14 out here in Acuff, Texas.
Mm.
And then at 17, again, because none of those was actually sticking. I mean, I can't remember the exact reason why. I think one of them was you know, I wanted my mother to know that, you know, I was really all that with God, but when I really wasn't. And then 17, of course, you know.
Right before the military?
Yeah, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, that didn't go good. But it wasn't until I don't remember exactly what day, because inside prison, all days run together. They're all the same. I mean, you might remember what year I was here, what month this happened. You know,
Sure.
Like 9/11. I mean, I know exactly what day that was. It's 9/11.
Some people are better at that than others. Yeah.
You know, 2001 or whatever. But I remember where I was at and the exact time I was watching the TV when that happened. But as far as me, no, I got baptized again at the Eastham unit in 1991.
Mm.
by Freddie Anderson, the guy that has that ministry.
Okay.
And I remember that. I just don't remember what day it was. And that from that time forward right there, that's when I really started, trying
To live your
I've
life
been
and
in
step
about
with the
3
gospel.
years then, and it's just like, yeah. So, but it was a process. Like I said, it just keeps going and going like the Energizer Bunny. It just keeps, you just keep growing, practicing, excelling. Like Paul said, I see you increasing, but you need to increase more. I see you're excelling, and everybody's talking about it. You don't even need to say anything, like he told the Thessalonians. You don't need to even say anything. The word's gone out about your works of faith, your labor of love, your steadfastness of hope. I mean, well, how good it would be for Paul to be telling you that.
Right.
So what would he say about this church? You always ask that kind of question. What would he say? Would he say that about us?
Don't know. I honestly don't want
I don't know.
to know. But wait, being in prison 30 years, what was it like getting out? Do you feel like you were, is it mind blowing?
Still?
Like a time machine? Yeah, still. Like even still, is it the same?
Well, on February the 20th, 2023, I was pacing in a cell because I knew my next day I was going to get out. In 2025, the 31st of January, I'm doing a podcast in the church that I love. Is that overwhelming?
I imagine so.
Think about it.
Yeah. I imagine so.
I just left a pulmonary rehab session that the VA provided for me to get my lung function a little bit better. I'm on a carnivore diet, and down there you can't be on a carnivore diet or you're starved to death. Yeah, so it's very overwhelming. I want to tell you something how overwhelming it really is. I don't know if it's PTSD about being in there, but sometimes I'll get really freaked out that I'm not in a room that needs to be locked. Like my bedroom at night, I locked my door.
Wow.
Because you think, well, why would you want your door? I thought you'd want to be free. Well, not at night. When you're in that cell and there's people walking around, you need that door to be locked. And when they open up, you naturally wake up.
Really?
I'm still like that. Yeah. So, but also driving down the road, a couple of times I've experienced this. My whole windshield just sort of turns into like a movie screen, and I still can't believe it. Because when you're in a place and you say, "Will I ever be able?" You see the guys on TV and you see the guards coming in talking about they got this new car, and you see all this stuff, and everybody's leaving but you. And you keep, and you're going, God, I've been faithful. I've been trying to preach the gospel in here. I've been doing all this stuff. And he's going, that ain't what I called you to do. I called you through the gospel to be a preacher in the prison. You got to get ready because you're going to go out there and preach. Now, of course, he's not telling me audibly, but I'm thinking about all this stuff.
Right.
And so I'm going, well, I've been praying and I'm not going to stop praying. I've been preaching in here. I'm not going to stop preaching. I've been learning the Bible. I'm not going to stop doing that. So it was overwhelming in there, thinking one day I will get out. But I didn't think I would. But a small part of me is going, now you're going to get out. God's faithful. And I never did pray to God to let me out of the penitentiary. I sort of made a Abrahamic deal with him. He said, if you will let me out. You know how he said, would you destroy him if you could just find 45 and then 30 and then,
Yeah.
So I said, if you'll let me out of here, I promise you I'll go back in. And that's what I did. And it feels good to fulfill a promise. It just took a while to get there. But he didn't want me to go into Lubbock County for some reason. He might later, I don't know.
Yeah.
That would probably be a good place to have a class. But again, if I go up there and knock on the prison door or the jail door and say, hey, I'm from the Church of Christ, I want to have a class. I'll still be out there knocking. So he provided another way. Like I told Glenn Bills, I said, if God could use a talking donkey to get me in the prison system, I mean, look at you, you. But he's sort of like, really? I get that.
It's all right.
Do you have a nonprofit or a company that you started that people might be able to donate to help?
Well, I did. I did have one. We sort of dissolved it because I really got in over my head on that. I wanted, everybody wants a nonprofit, then the 501c3 thing, and then all that stuff. I didn't really understand it and don't know anything about it, even though there's people that can tell you about it and get you. It's really not hard to get into, you know. I mean, you could fill out the paperwork and be approved for that, but then what do you do with it? But no, but I mean, prison ministry takes money.
Mm-hmm.
It takes money. It really does. If you're going to do it full time, and I plan to expand it more. For wherever God leads me, I'd like to probably get into something a little closer than Lamesa is 65 miles away. So I'd like to try to go. There's a couple of units down around Plainview I'd like to get into. And I know the guys at that Trinity Fellowship, I met the main guys down there. They could probably let me get in there. But there's another problem with that. I mean, it's like my brother asked me, how do you feel about hanging around all the denominational people?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, I never thought about it.
Mm.
But I go in there with a different message.
Mm.
And he lets me preach what I want to preach.
That's good.
At first, he said, just don't do any doctrine. I said, that's when I told him that, okay, I'll just do sound doctrine.
Mm.
And so, anyway, yeah.
I think we just got to preach the gospel. Just
preach it, yeah.
Preach the gospel, yeah. Everyone should preach the gospel. I read a quote. It's really simple, but I love it. It's like, it's preach the gospel, die, be forgotten. And I don't know. It's very simple. I'm not sure about the be forgotten part, but in the sense, I love that humility. And for all of us, that should be the goal. Like, I'm not here to become kings and queens, but to help everyone in need of the gospel.
Very interesting. It's like last year we studied legacy.
Yeah, it kind of goes with that theme. Yeah.
And so if you're, I like to leave this, just not me. I can't do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll read Paul's letters, at the end of his letters, he'll start mentioning all the people that was helping him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need help, And like I got 3 guys going in with us. Trey Cloud, he went in with us last night at the Kingdom Tower. And so very helpful. I get everybody involved and introduce them. And but we need to pass this on, and make sure now that I'm in the system, and I've actually fixed to become a certified volunteer chaplain assistant. So I have to take special training for that. I'll have to go to Amarillo one day and do that. That way I could have CVCAs can answer the phone in chaplain's office. They can open the chaplain's office when he's not there. They actually give you the keys.
Oh, good.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
I'm walking down the hallway now, and people say, "Hey, thank you for coming, sir." And used to it was me. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. But now it's just totally different. But we need to leave that. We need to pass that on. This prison outreach ministry here at Milwaukee needs to grow. And if it took me to God using me as to get this going, I'm really blessed.
So what does that take? Does it take people giving you money? Do you have a Venmo we can?
Well,
give
you can
or
always.
does it take like
you wanna
boots
give
on
me
the
some
ground?
money, George?
Yeah, sure.
Give me some money. How about you, Justin?
Sure.
Caleb?
What?
Yeah, what?
Well, I think we put it out for the public, and if they want to help, then it could be a source of passive income. But
if you need boots on the
However many
ground, maybe we need
well,
help.
It's not being money, but yeah, we got a formulated plan because now that I'm in the door with this Trinity Fellowship congregation there, and then now I've got this one by myself on the 3rd Sunday, and so I know of getting good with the chaplains. They're the ones that has the final say so on what you're going to be able to do. So this one out here at Montford's has already told me that I could get a class, and just finding the right time, and what right day of the week. And they got a problem in TDCJ. They got shortage of staff.
Mm-hmm.
So I might drive all the way to Lamesa one Sunday and get down there and turn around and have to come back because they don't have enough staff to put somebody in the church house.
Mm-hmm.
For, they got to have security.
Mm.
And they also got to think of, well, if we put somebody in there, what if a riot kicks off on this side of the unit over here? Are they going to have enough of a response team to handle that? So, but a lot of things can happen like that. So laying the groundwork and passing it on, there's a lot of things that I think this, our body here at Milwaukee needs to sit down and talk about. Because a lot of people say, well, I'll give you some money to go down there, but I'm not saying everybody could go. And it's not for everybody. I'm telling you that. Prison ministry is not for everybody. So, but it's for me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's amazing. I appreciate your courage. You've inspired me to try to help somehow, and I think if this little podcast could get any type of word out, that could be helpful, so my hope and prayer is for growth, because it just seems that you are very well equipped to make a huge impact in a whole lot of people's lives who are just lacking hope, and to be that light shining in the darkness, to be called to that. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man. It's all because of the glory of God,
Yeah,
the
amen.
grace of God.
Amen. Do you want to give your question?
Yeah, we ask our guests a question, which Jesus in Matthew 7 is giving instruction to his disciples about if someone, or at his time a Roman soldier, conscripted you to carry a load for a mile, which happened to Joseph of Arimathea even when Jesus was being crucified. Here, you carry that cross. They pulled somebody out of the crowd and made him do it. That Jesus' instruction is not necessarily you need to have a good attitude about that. And so much so that go with him too. If he makes you go a mile, go an extra mile. And in that way, you be that shining light. It almost causes a question to somebody look at you and say, why are you doing this? You don't have to go any further. I can't force you. What words could be said in that extra mile? What gospel could be preached to signify the hope that's within us? We ask all of our guests to maybe expound on that. When Jesus says that and it strikes your heart, what would you say is going the extra mile? How would you counsel someone if you were having a conversation and they asked you that question? What does that mean to go the extra mile?
I think it means to do whatever it takes to reach out to your neighbor, to, like Paul said, to excel still more, and to keep increasing with your faith. Keep following God, and whatever it takes to complete your task for that day. It's like, when I clean houses.
Mm-hmm.
They don't ask us to do some things because it costs extra money, like power washing the driveway or something like that. Well, sometimes we'll do that anyway. Me and my partner, we'll go ahead and let's do that. And we take before and after pictures. And so we go the extra mile to show them that we're for real and we're going to keep it real with you, and we're going to be an asset. We're going to be a blessing instead of a burden. And so we go the extra mile. I do that, probably not enough, but the motto should be treat others the way you want them to treat you. Matthew 7:12. So that's what my main thing would be, to just treat people good and even show them that, man, you can do way better. Talking to yourself, I can do way better.
Yeah.
For helping people. Just keep going and doing more than you think you can do. Just push yourself. And just love people and keep loving them. Being patient.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Sam, thank you so much for coming on
Okay.
our podcast and hanging out with us for a little bit and sharing a little bit of your story.
Oh, well, thank y'all for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We hope it's edifying to you, the listener. And if you'd like to help out Sam in prison ministry, or monetarily, or with other type of service, then please reach out at our email below. We'll get you connected to Sam. Thank you.
appreciate that.
Go so. If you want to know more about the Bible or you have any questions, our email is in the description below. You can DM us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're looking for a church family or you're in the Lubbock area, we invite you to come visit and hang out with us in Milwaukee. We love for you to find a church who practices the love of Christ.